Hi, everyone. This is Dean Crisp, your host for Straight Talk on Leadership. I'm so excited this week to have my guest with me is going to be Sheriff Al Williams from the Burke County Sheriff's Office in Georgia. Man, not only is he a great friend, but just a great leader, doing some really exciting things down there in Burke County, and he's just getting ready to finish his first book. So we want you to sit back today and, enjoy our podcast. And as we always say on Straight Talk on Leadership, turn up the volume. You're ready to change your life. Hi, everyone. This is Dean Crisp, your host for Straight Talk on Leadership. And man, welcome back. And thank you so much for joining us. Hard to believe, but this is episode number 34 in our podcast. We started way back in August of 2019, and we've been hitting it hard on the trail ever since with our podcast. We've got so many of you out there that are joining us every week, and you're sending us emails and text. And we're so excited that you're part of not only our broadcast or on our podcast, but you're part of our LHLN family. And that stands for Leaders Helping Leaders Network. Back when I first started teaching, I can remember in the classroom, I always thought there was just something else about the classroom. Now, you can come to a classroom, you can have a great experience, but there's got to be something else after that. And as a result, I created this Leaders Helping Leaders Network, where we're really excited to announce we got over 2,000 members now of people who join in and want to help each other and try to mentor each other and pass information along. And, next, matter of fact, if you listen to this podcast on Monday of this week, we're going to be doing a webinar where we're going to have myself, Tim Plotz, and Dave Allen for all FBI leader instructors. We're going to be talking about the things that we've learned while we're on the COVID thing as it relates to books we're reading and just how we're continuing to grow. So we hope you join us for that. And you can look on our website, lhln.org, and get all of that information. But we want you to hit that subscribe button. And if you get a chance, go on and rate this show, because the more likes we get and the more ratings we get, the higher up we go in terms of not only affiliate sponsors, but people that really want to listen. And the goal is not for me to get everybody to listen to me, but my goal is to help you change your life and to, in the process, try to help me change mine. So as we go through this, I've got Al Williams with us today, and you can also join us on YouTube. We've got our own YouTube channel where you can actually see this podcast live or recorded. So I'm joined today by Al Williams, who is the Sheriff of Burke County, Georgia, and has been the sheriff since 2017. Now, Al has got quite a resume, or vitae, if you will. He's held several jobs, from being director of an academy to being a police chief, to being a criminal investigator. He started out in the Augusta PD Police Department, which is now defunct, but now he and also worked at the Richmond County Sheriff's Office. And if you're wondering, is that Augusta where they got those nice greens and they got that nice golf course and they got all those nice special things? And matter of fact, I went down and visited Al a year or so ago during the Masters, got a chance to see him. It was the first time I actually got to be there, and Al and I were at the same time there. So, Al, I want to welcome you to our show.
Dean, thank you so much for having me on with you today. Thank you for thinking of Burke County. You know that we love you here in this eastern part of Georgia, and it's good to always spend time with you. You and Kelly are great folks, and our people here love you. We appreciate what you do, and you really do change lives. You say that, you shouldn't take it for granted. You changed my life just a few months ago, and I'm looking forward to this podcast today to see what we can do to help.
Well, Al, that's very kind of you to say, and we would be remiss if we didn't give a good shout out to all the folks at Burke County there that work with you. I get a chance, and it's really an honor and a privilege to travel around this great country and get to meet thousands of law enforcement officers and people and administrators and chiefs and sheriffs. And that's one of the real perks of this job, is getting to meet so many fine people. But I can honestly say that Burke County people are as good as anywhere across the country. And they really are a reflection of your leadership. And I could tell the first time I got to go to Burke County, I really could tell there was something different, not only about you, but about the people there working. And man, our good friend Lewis Blanchard down there, what a great guy, man. He's your chief deputy, and he is a true soldier of the people. That is for sure, And we want to say a big shout out to him and thank him and all the people there. And I follow, matter of fact, on Facebook, I've got probably 10 of your folks that I follow like every day, that I see what's going on. Lacey Silas, I know Lacey has had in her health thing. She had lost a lot of weight and just took care of herself and looks great. And you just got people down there pushing the envelope on everything, man. They're just wanting to get better. And, you got Captain Wild, and you got those folks, and man, just great people down there. And Ramon at the marshal's office, man, that's a character down there for sure. But I really do appreciate and love people of Burke County. So thank you very much for that. Sheriff, you just have finished up, you and I talked about it the other day, a book that you're writing. It's actually a memoir of your life. And so just first, before you go into that, tell us just a little bit more about you and what you're about, and then we'll talk about your book a little bit.
Thanks, Dean, and thanks for the opportunity. Look, I grew up in a family of 7 with a single mother, certainly no dad around. She was extremely strict. We were very poor, moved in the late 70s, 1978. We lived in a house with no running water and no electricity. And my twin brother, Alfonzo, had asthma really bad. And the doctor said, y'all need to move to town so you'll be close to the hospital. And the doctor helped my mother to get a house in public housing. And man, we had a 5-bedroom, 2-bath house. We thought we were in heaven. Didn't have to go outside to do our business anymore, but that's where we started. And so we had a lot of discipline. We had a lot of love. My mother always said, no matter what the situation was, we always had enough to say grace over. So I'm writing a memoir. I'll be finished in the next week. And the title of the book is Enough to Say Grace Over.
Wow. That's quite a testimony to your mom. And that's quite a testament to the fact of how you grew up, And when people say, in the South, we say this a lot. When I go north, people really don't get this. But when I say dirt poor, that's exactly what you mean there, dirt poor. A lot of times when I was growing up, of course, talk about the age, we used to have some of my friends had dirt floors in their houses. Of course, I don't want those kids out there that's now listening think I grew up in the dinosaur age, but that wasn't that far ago. But, when you talk about struggling like that, I guess I would guess that would teach you some life lessons growing up like that. You want to share some of those with us?
You bet. Well, from the age 7 or 8 years old, I wanted to be a police officer. I watched police come into our projects where we lived, or our government housing, and they were always responding to break up fights or to break up domestics. And I liked what I saw. They showed up, they commanded authority, and they seemed to handle situations and problem solve. And I thought, surely I want to do that. And in my era, you watch Dukes of Hazzard or one of those police shows, and I had a short-term goal to become a police officer. Long-term goal was to become a detective, and those were my interests. And a respectable job where I could help people, and I was able to do that.
Well, I know that when you talk a lot about leadership, and our podcast is Straight Talk on Leadership, and one of the things that I really see out of you that I think is so true, a lot of times you hear this, but you don't really see it as much, as servant leadership. That's a big thing for you.
Yes.
What does that mean, servant leadership?
I'm so glad you asked, Dean. It is to me, to this Burke County Sheriff's Office, to this community, that I like to quote this scripture, and that is, the Bible says that the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. We are here to serve mankind. It starts with your employees. We can't serve the community until we serve one another, in whatever capacity that may be. And so we are here to help one another, to grow one another, to coach, to mentor, to train, and to hold one another accountable. And once we do that with one another, we can then take that into the community and spread that service and love. And that's where we are. Everything we do in this community is all about servant leadership, serving other people. And that's also what the book is about.
Well, I follow your department on Facebook, and I think that if folks want to really follow an agency that's doing a great deal, go to the Facebook and follow Burke County Sheriff's Office in Burke County, Georgia, and you'll kind of get an idea. They are, you guys are really, what I say, I don't know, you're very forward, or you're very quick with the social media to let people know what's going on, but it's not to blow your own horn. It's to help other people get involved and let people know in the community what your deputies are about and what your people are about. And I have personally seen the officers there that I've talked to that talk about the transition of sheriff prior to you becoming sheriff and then now afterwards. And a lot of times people will say to me, well, where do you know this is? I'll talk about a program, or I'll talk about leadership and some special things that are going on. And they'll say, well, give me an example of an agency. And a lot of times I'll say Burke County, Georgia. Go to Burke County, Georgia. By no means are they perfect, but they sure are working hard to kind of be the best that they possibly can be. And you see that in your Facebook post and your Twitter accounts and all those things. You really see an aggressive kind of way to let the public know, man, we're with you. And I think that's good.
That's exactly right, Dean. People want to know first and foremost that they are valued and respected. Employees want those two things. There has to be value and respect, and that respect has to be earned. People have to be, the right folks have to be at the table when decisions are made, when there are decisions that affect them and their families. They have to feel like they're a part of it. So value and respect are two very important aspects of our leadership. And then once we get those things in place, it's almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Until you feel one, you can't go to the next level. And so secondly, we want the public to know two things. One is they can trust us. And secondly, they can trust our product. When I say they can trust us to be educated and informed and engaged, and that they can trust that we'll continue to learn on a continuous basis. And can they trust our product? The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. We're not in this for ourselves. We're in this to serve them. This is not a us versus them relationship. We're inviting the public into our agency and allowing them to be a part of our agency, so that I like to say this in leadership, Dean, and that is, and this is really important. The cleanup starts before the crisis occurs. The cleanup starts before the crisis occurs. Oh, wow. We just had a tornado in Burke County, Georgia last Monday, and it ripped through a major part of the county and tore trees and houses and trailers up really bad. And it happened at 4:45 in the morning. By 5:30, our special response team had been activated with chainsaws and gas and personnel and resources and Gatorade and coolers, and we were on the ground cutting trees, to include the chief deputy and the sheriff, lifting limbs off of houses. We didn't wait on the road department. We didn't make excuses about why it couldn't be done. We didn't say the chainsaws are empty or one's in the shop to be serviced. Everything was ready to go. And that's leadership. That's people being able to trust us and being able to trust our product. As you know, we recently built a house for a family of four. Who the father was a breadwinner, 32 years old, 6'4", 185 lean man with muscle, who developed a rare form of meningitis and overnight lost both arms and both legs.
Oh my goodness.
We established a GoFundMe account. We raised $120,000 and we built them a $300,000 house. It's not what you're accustomed to from a sheriff's office or any law enforcement agency. Can we do it again next year? I don't know. If the opportunity presents itself, maybe, maybe not. But a social worker from the hospital who followed our Facebook and knew that we were involved in our community called us up and said, can we meet with you? And I said, come on down and meet with us. And she said, can you build a house for this family? And my chief deputy and I looked at one another and said, you bet we can. And we'll get it done. and we started planning that day. And on Christmas Day 2019, we handed them the keys to move into their house. That's service above self.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that I did not realize that you guys had done that. And what an amazing story. And you know, you guys talk about servant leadership or the servant's heart. And I think that one thing that has certainly changed us over the last, I'd say 10 years in law enforcement is, you know as well as I do, that law enforcement has changed greatly. It's changed in the last 10 minutes, not only the last 10 years, but it's constantly evolving and changing. And today's police officer has to be more community minded than they ever were before, and more a part of the community. And that takes a special person to do that. And I know you guys in Burke County are really trying to get that done there. And it's exciting to hear that. And so what's been the response from the community?
One of trust and admiration. I mentioned to you that the tornado happened this week. Let me just tell you, last year we had a construction crew to break a water main in town that shut down the entire water system for the entire city of Waynesboro, and there was no fresh water to be had. When I say that the cleanup starts before the crisis occurs, we already had relationships formed. Pepsi and Coca-Cola started bringing pallets of water here so that it could be distributed to our constituency, to our community. That's cleanup before the crisis occurs. We already have relationships formed. Our Citizens Police Academy, we've got those people. We have those relationships. Those people know us. They know they can trust us. They can trust our product. Leadership is ever changing. There are a lot of challenges. As you said, it's changed in the last few minutes. But we have to be able to adjust with some level of fluidity. And it wasn't so long ago that we were so concerned about assault style weapons and active shooters and police community relations and immigration and sanctuary county and de-escalation tactics. And somehow we've gone from that to the coronavirus. Not only public safety, but public health. And so it's ever changing. We've just got to be ready to respond. We've got to have the cleanup before the crisis. That's where we are.
You know, Al, you and I were talking the other day about our personal goals and things that we set. And the one thing I do know about you is you're a doer. Now, if you don't know this, and I didn't say this in the intro, but Al has an associate degree, a bachelor's degree, and 2 masters, and then working towards a 3rd master's. I'm not sure why he don't just go and get a doctorate, but anyway, he's probably going to get that one of these days. But he's one of those guys that absolutely will go out there and get things done. He's a doer. But you were talking about the class, and Al took the class, the Master Trainers course. I remember in February we had, what a tremendous experience that was in that classroom. But I was really taken with some of the comments that you said, and I want to mention a couple of those, but I do want you to talk about your experience after the class, because I think people can learn, because every single one of us has something in us that we haven't done yet that we know we should have done. Like yours was you wanted to write a book, or some of us might be that we wanted to get our degree, or some of us might be that we want to do that service project we've never done. But everybody has something in them that they can still do, no matter what age, no matter whatever, wherever they're at. And it was the same thing with me about my book. But in the class, you said that you particularly were struck by the fact that we said, this is life-changing. You're going to go and really change the way you are in your life. And I think you were a little, I don't know that you believed that in the first couple of, the day or so, but I know it changed you after that. But so talk about your experience in that classroom. And then I'm going to mention some of the quotes that you had in that classroom that really, our audience is really going to love them, because I love using them and they're so good. But talk about that experience.
What an experience it was, Dean. And you're giving me chills just making me think about it now, because I have people here at this sheriff's office like Charlotte that you taught, one of our jail supervisors who talk about you weekly and talk about how you've changed your life. And we've seen it in her work ethic. But when I went to your class on to your Master Presenters course, the first day I listened, and you and Tim have a way of capturing a person's attention. And so I didn't get sleepy. I wasn't bored. But I got to tell you, I listened. I've been around for 30 years. I've been teaching since 1993. And I thought, there's nothing these guys are going to be able to tell me that's going to change my life. And so I went back on day 2, and immediately something started to happen within me, and I have chill bumps to tell you now that I started to connect with the class. The biggest surprise that I learned from the class was that I was doing some things right. Okay, and without being braggadocious or arrogant, I was doing a few things right. And so the first day I left with some confirmation, and I was comfortable. The second day, when you guys started to get us up in front of class, after having taught since 1993, and here it was 2019 or the 2020, February 2020, I'm being taught how to be a master presenter. I thought I knew what I was doing. And I thought that it was all about the material, because I had been taught all my life, it's about, get this material out. And I knew that law enforcement wasn't teaching it right, because it was the same mold. Most instructors taught the same way, and either you got it or you didn't. And we watched a lot of students, as an academy director, I watched a lot of students go by the wayside because the instructor didn't do something to reach them. But when you guys got us up there and you got us to stop concentrating on ourselves, and you told us that there had to be some emotional connection first, followed by style, and then thirdly, material, I left there saying, wow, where was this 30 years ago? How many people have I failed? And I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about the number of people that we let down over the years, because we didn't have this Master Presenters course. We didn't have this network to feed off of, and I was embarrassed. And then we had to write. You know, I like to talk about scripture sometimes, and I talked about Jesus being on the Mount of Transfiguration with the 3 disciples, and Peter said, Lord, it is good for us to be here. And I said to Ramon, who the marshal of Richmond County, who was sitting next to me, it's good for us to be here. We're in the right place at the right time for the right reasons. We are here because we haven't been doing it right. And just all week we met people from all over the place. People like Tom from South Carolina and Andrew from Florida. And I connected with those people and Christian, and in a way that was profound, in a way that changed my life and changed the way I present. So much so, I left on that Friday and flew out to New York to an Oprah Winfrey show with Michelle Obama to listen to her speech on life-changing experiences, but I'd already heard it all week in North Carolina from Dean Crisp and Tim Plotz. And so that was on a Saturday. That Monday, I got up and I said, today is the day I'm going to start writing.
Well, now, Oprah actually said something she actually said something about you need to start something, or that what you told me yesterday was so compelling to me, because I know in this podcast out there, somebody's listening that needs to do exactly what you did and just start doing it. So talk about that part. Don't forget that part out.
Yeah, well, she said, this is 2020. Do something you've always wanted to do. Let this be the year that you be yourself and that you challenge yourself to be different. And not about weight loss, but about connection. And I said it simply reinforced what I'd heard all week from from you guys. And so I had a mind altering experience all week in class, but I had it reinforced, and it was confirmation to me when I went to hear them. I had started to change all week in class, and I admitted to you by the third day or the second day that when an instructor stands before the class and says, I'm going to do something this week to change your life, you're thinking it's a smoke screen, they're selling me something.
Oh, yeah.
But buddy, by day two, it was really happening. And it was happening in an altruistic fashion. And when we started to take breaks and connect with people, and when some student would stand before the class who had been teaching for years, and all of a sudden they're getting the emotional connection followed by style and then material, it started to transform me, and it started to help me realize I'd been doing it wrong for a long time. And I was able to come back to this agency, and staff meetings are not the same. Writing is not the same. I started to realize that these preachers with these mega churches are doing exactly what you're saying. They find an emotional connection. I started to understand, Dean, when my wife cries in church, it's because the speaker has gotten an emotional connection with her. And he has a certain style that he uses. And then the material, which is the Bible, is the same material, just a different emotional connection. And it started to change our staff meetings because I could connect emotionally with our people. And when they see that you care, you've heard the cliche that is so true. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Absolutely.
And that's how it changed my staff. That's how it changed Burke County. That's what I'm driving home to my chief deputy. We're sending out 5 emails a day that are half a mile long about coronavirus. And I'm able to say to my chief deputy, hey, buddy, you got to get that connection, that emotional connection. They're not going to read all that. Just show them you care about them. And then do it with the right style. And if you'll get the emotional connection and style, the material will come.
Well, that class honestly changed me. It didn't, I think it was one of those times that we try to get those in every class, but there was a lot about that class that clicked. And people were there for a common purpose to change their lives. And you saw it. You saw a person who had never done a serious presentation in front of anybody become one of the best speakers at the end of the week. And it wasn't because they had the most experience, but you just believed them.
Yes.
You know, you talking about Crystal and, or Brooke or whatever we called her, but she was just so awesome. By the end of the week, it was like, you couldn't wait for her to get up there and talk. And by the first of the week, she got up there and was so scared, we thought she was going to faint. I mean, it was like, man, she really, really gets it. And, that class really changed us all. And it was a great class. And the thing that I thought was impressive about you was the fact that, you said some things during that class and honestly, I got a whole notebook stuff. Honestly, this is truth, Al. And a lot of times you can't say this as an instructor. I taught that class, but I took 16 pages of notes myself. That's how everybody learned from it. And that's what we hope to do in those classes. The master presenter, connecting with people and understanding how, if you can't present as a leader, I don't care who you are, if you can't make an emotional connectivity, you can have the best ideas in the world. They will fall short for someone who has a lesser idea, but more of a connection. And that is so true. That is so true. You got $1 million ideas, but people don't know how to connect to people with them. And then they get lost. So as a leader, you owe that to your people, to connect to them, to get that idea, to get that. It's just the way we are. And when you look at, there's some things you said in class that I thought was, oh my gosh, it was, one of them is you can't have youth and wisdom. I thought, oh my God, I wish somebody would have told me that You know, I mean, I became a chief at an early age, and I thought, oh my God, if I'd only known that, that there's no way I can have wisdom, so I better work my tail off to be the best I can. Wisdom will come, and it's so true. The next one that you, yeah, go
youth
ahead.
and maturity, youth and wisdom, youth and maturity. It's very difficult to have both. I didn't get a police chief's job when I was 25 years old over a 32-person agency for whatever reason. Politically, I didn't get the job, and I was very angry for a couple of years. 15 years to the month, I ended up being chief of that agency, and I was ready. I wasn't ready at 25 years old. So yes, it's very difficult to have youth and maturity, and then be responsible with it. You'll get yourself in trouble. And as an old guy told me, if you don't get yourself in trouble with money, you'll get yourself in trouble with the things money can buy.
Oh yeah, and that is so true. You know, and I love that next one you said, which was so compelling, was you said there, and you said your grandmother told you this, that there's no advantage to the second, or there's no lesson learned from the second kick of a mule. I thought, wow.
Yeah.
That's so true.
That is very true. Nothing to be learned from the second kick of a mule.
Yeah, nothing.
The lesson's already been given.
Yeah, and all it is now is just another kick. So you better learn that. You know, I do a lot of reading, and this matter of fact, our podcast, not podcast, but our webinar next week is going to be about some of the stuff that I'm reading myself, Tim Plotz and Dave Allen, some of the books that we're reading, or some of the. Because I read an article the other day, and I want to share to you. The article is called "The Uncertainty Factor," and it was on Mind Tools, which I get on the email. And this guy by the name of John Finley, who is an English historian and mathematician, he wrote this about maturity. And this is what you said about maturity, and I want to expand on that just a minute. He said, maturity of the mind is the capacity to endure uncertainty.
Yes.
The capacity to not get derailed or immobilized by the uncertainties and rapid, often chaotic changes we all face in our personal and professional lives is a personal asset that is remarkable and rare amongst individuals. Wow.
That is profound.
I mean, it basically says a mature individual does not get caught up in the chaos of uncertainty. And you're seeing that right now in this COVID thing. You're seeing the absolute uncertainties bringing out the worst in people in terms of maturities. And, you know, I talk about 3 levels of maturity, and I never have thought about it like he said it, but that's an amazing quote, you know, to think about him comparing. And he said the number one thing that, and it was kind of interesting, said that the number one thing about people that they really often shows the weakness of leaders, and I thought was so compelling, was he said the number one thing is change. Because of their lack of maturity, the change really, the inability to handle change is one. The second thing is the inability to work well with people as a team. I thought, boy, that is so true. And the third thing is deficit in interpersonal skills. Wow. That's so true, because it all goes back to connection.
It all goes back to connection, communication. It's you know, as I said earlier, it wasn't long ago that we were more concerned about active shooters and school shootings and de-escalation, and now we're on COVID. I was able to make a baseball card when I was a young policeman so that we could give out to the kids as a rapport builder. And on the back of that card, I had an objective that says, stay fair, consistent, and objective. And if we're going to learn anything, we can't behave in the same fashion. We can't be kicked by the mule a second time and a third time. So if we had the last crises and we learned to manage it, we'll manage this crisis.
Oh yeah.
But it takes some fairness and some consistency and objectivity to do that. And if you're going to put out fires all day, every day, then you're not going to be a good leader. You're going to have to learn at some point to trust the folks around you, and to maintain some calm, and learn to do just what Finley had to say in the book.
It reminds me of Alex Tobar, who was in our class, and he was from Savannah, Georgia. And Alex said something that, man, I steal to today. But I give him credit, but I steal it from him. He said, it's easier to blow out a match than it is to extinguish a forest fire.
That's right. That's right. I remember that. Great guy.
Oh my God, that is so true, right? It's so true. So Al, we've spent some good time here on this podcast, and I know you're a busy person, and you got to get back to campaigning. You got to get back to doing all that stuff. But let me do a little rapid fire here with you for a second on some questions. I'm going to ask you about 3 questions and just kind of get your short answers to them, and then we're going to wrap this podcast up if that's fine with you. So how has the job of being sheriff changed you?
Well, it's changed in so many ways. And in a few ways, it's what I alluded to earlier. I have learned that as being sheriff, that we are here to serve. And I get to serve mankind every day. And I'm very appreciative of that. Before the class, I may not have had a fancy word to put to it. Now I understand it's servant leadership. I may not have been able to put that word to it before. But what I'm most embarrassed about, which is probably the next part of your question, I don't have your questions before me, is what have you learned as being sheriff? I've learned that for 30 years, it wasn't about material, style, and emotion. It was emotion, style, and material.
Well, you don't have my questions, but that was one of my questions. But do you have a why of leadership?
Yes, without a doubt. We didn't leave Master Presenters course without a why, and that without understanding our why. And my why is I do what I do because I want to serve other people, and I want to create leaders who will become servant leaders so that we can continue to serve mankind.
There you go. Now, last question. First day on the job, new police officer, first day out, just out of the academy, got a chance to spend about 2 minutes with them. What do you say?
What I say is, the Bible says that the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. Get out here and serve mankind, however that looks, whether it's chainsaws during a tornado, or stopping the bleeding on an active shooter, or building a house for a quadriplegic. Easter egg hunts, turkey drives, toy drives at Christmas. It's service to mankind. Arresting bad guys, taking them off the street, it's service to mankind. We are equally known for being tough on crime. But I always say I want the Chick-fil-A model. It's all about service.
Al, I really appreciate you joining us today. I mean, what a pleasure. Al is one of my kind of point 2 leaders across this great country. He's one of the few people that I have found that, now a lot of people say a lot of things about leadership, but I've also found that if you don't do what you say about leadership, it can certainly hurt your leadership. But Al's one of those guys that really gets out there, works with his folks, loves them, might have to make some tough decisions with them at times, but man, loves them and serves the people of Burke County. Sheriff, what a pleasure to have you today. What a pleasure to have you as part of our LHL team and LHLN team, and we really thank you for that. I want to thank you for taking the time today out of your busy schedule to join us, and I'm going to leave the last word with you, and then I'll close us out. What do you want to say to the folks out there?
Dean, I want to say to you, brother, I have learned through leadership that it's okay to tell a man or woman that you love them. I love you. I love Tim. I love Krista. I love Andrew, those folks I met in class. Kelly, love you too. You were in class. So as a leader, I like to tell people every day, I love you. I do love you. You've changed my life. You helped me get this book written. I'm going to send you an autographed copy.
Oh, I can't wait to get that sucker. And the title of it again is Enough to Say Grace Over by Al Williams, the Sheriff of Burke County. Man, thank you for joining us. Folks, hope you've enjoyed this podcast from Straight Talk on Leadership. It's been a great hour here with Al Williams. Best to you folks, and stay safe out there. And until next time, I'm Dean Chris.